We set sail for Lamalera, a small fishing village in Indonesia. Lamalera is on a mountainous volcanic island where the poor soil is not suitable for farming. Villagers depend for survival on a centuries-old hunting tradition, whaling. And their main target isn't just any whale. They hunt the sperm whale, the world's largest carnivore that can grow to a length of 20 meters and weigh up to 55 tons. Lamalera is on the island of Limbato, one of the 17,000 islands that make up Indonesia. The earliest written record of this whale hunt dates back to 1643, when Portuguese explorers described it as heroic. People in Lamalera have always subsisted on what the ocean could provide. But with no nearby reefs or shallows harboring fish colonies, villagers must sail far from shore to cast their nets in the deep ocean. For centuries, fishermen rowed out to sea in their frail craft, hauling in anything that could feed the community. But these meager catches were not enough to ensure the village's long-term survival. So they developed a whaling technique using handmade harpoons. But in the early 2000s, a sophisticated new piece of fishing gear was added to the tackle box, the outboard motor. There are now about 30 outboards, and they've completely transformed what villagers still call traditional fishing. Sharks, rays, and dolphins are choice targets, and much easier to catch with motorcraft. While they still use traditional boats to hunt the sperm whale, motorcraft help in various ways.
We depend on sperm whales. We do catch dolphins and rays, but without the sperm whale, the community could not survive. That's why we all pray that the whales will come back year after year.
Whales are vital for the inhabitants of Lamalera. Without them, we die of starvation.
Long classified as traditional subsistence activities, hunting and fishing in Lamalera are not subject to any quotas or bans on harvesting for the protection of endangered species. This exception to international law has not been reviewed since the hunters began using outboards. Villagers still consider their practices as ancestral activities essential to their survival. Whaling season begins in May. The whole village gathers to pray and commemorate the souls of those lost at sea while working at this dangerous occupation.
At the beginning of every hunting season, the first formal event is a get-together we call the beach meeting. We talk about various issues concerning the hunts to come. We might, for example, spend time discussing which team will harpoon first, second, and so on. We have to agree on that, or it will be a free-for-all. Then later that night, we make an offering of candles and flowers to the memory of those lost at sea. They are our heroes.
Dan juga tanggal 1 Mei itu ditetapkan
May
sebagai
1st is the day of the
pembukaan
first whale hunt.
musim resmi turun ke laut. Pada saat itu juga setelah misa,
The day begins with a blessing of the boats
ada
and the
upacara
men.
pemberkatan laut. Kemudian pada tanggal
Then all the
2,
fishermen
semua
go out to
perahu yang
sea
sudah siap,
to do their
melaut
job.
seperti biasa.
Traditional boats called tena used to be propelled by oar or sail. But nowadays, the large craft are towed far out to sea where the whales can be found.
Baru itu di sini jarang tikam.
There's a ban on hunting blue whales,
Jadi di sini kebiasaannya
but we're allowed to catch sperm whales and orca.
orca itu bisa.
We are dependent on waves and plankton. If plankton is abundant and the waves head towards us, then the whales will come to us. If the waves go out to sea, the whales won't come.
The harpooner stands on a small platform in the bow. He has to leap into the air to plant his harpoon in the animal's flesh. It's an art, and one with considerable risk. It's a difficult and dangerous job, and results in many casualties.
I've been hunting whales my whole life. I started when I finished grade school, and I stopped 3 months ago, when I lost my leg.
Some lose their lives. Others bear the scars of a battle lost in the name of tradition.
During a hunt, there was a lot of confusion on the boat, and I ended up in the wrong place. I was standing with my leg in among the ropes when the harpoon caught in the whale and the cable started to reel out and I was thrown into the sea. When the cable between the whale and the boat tightened, it cut off my leg. It was a big whale, but we lost it.
Whether the whale is large or small, it all depends on the harpooner.
The harpooner is the most important person on the team. If you don't have a good harpooner, there's no point in going to sea. Even with a team of 8, 9, or 10 men, you have to have a good harpooner. A real harpooner has to be able to stand straight up at the front of the boat without getting nervous or feeling any fear when he sees the red eyes of the whale. A harpooner can't make a mistake. The rest of the team expects him to be successful no matter what. If there aren't many whales and I miss, I feel that I've let the others down. They rely on me. I feel an enormous sense of responsibility.
It's a lucky escape for this killer whale. The harpoon fell out, and we're unlikely to see him again anytime soon.
The most remarkable thing I remember is the time I chased down and harpooned 3 whales, all in the same day. One of the whales was at least 15 meters long. All the boats were after it. Being a harpooner is a source of pride, mainly because it's a skill handed down from father to son. My father was not a harpooner, so I'm even prouder because of that. When we spot a dolphin, we come close and reduce speed so we can follow it. But it's tricky. Dolphins are unpredictable. They zigzag all over the place. I can catch up to 10 small dolphins a week, but if they're big, probably only 5.
The recently introduced use of motorboats has changed the way they hunt and greatly increased the pressure on a variety of vulnerable species. After another day hunting at sea, it's time to divvy up the catch among the crew. In a well-established distribution system, the harpooner and the boat's owner are allotted the best pieces.
This is the harpoon guy, so he's the one who first time,
How do they eat that? Is it dry in the sun or?
Bagaimana dimasaknya? Dikeringin dulu baru dimasak?
Tidak, langsung ada yang kasih kering, ada yang langsung masak. Dan kuasa.
Okay. They can try it first, but it's more delicious if you just cook it right away.
Obviously, for Westerners like ourselves, these images are very hard to accept because we have an almost emotional relationship with dolphins. When we come to places like this, I think we have to set aside our opinions, our Western point of view, to be able to understand this culture, even a little. But it's not easy.
The numbers given by the harpooner are food for thought. If this one boat takes 10 dolphins a week, how many dolphins are caught every year by the Lamalera fleet's dozens of boats? And what is the impact on marine species now that motorboats are part of the hunter's arsenal? In this corner of the world, there are no scientists to track population numbers.
Don't you think you're hunting too many dolphins?
No, not at all. There will always be dolphins.
Fishermen believe that their God knows what's good for them and would not put all these animals in their path if it wasn't right. Many boys aspire to the most prestigious job around. For generations, harpooners have commanded great respect here in the village because they contribute to feeding the whole community. For these youngsters, the dream of confronting a big sperm whale out at sea is very real.
This is a day for celebration because they've just caught a young sperm whale. It's a young male. You can tell from the teeth. It's a male. Hard to tell the exact age, but he's still fairly small. It's probably easier for them to catch the smaller ones. The main harpooner thrust the first harpoon into the whale. That harpoon is on a rope, and the rope is attached to a small wooden boat, which the whale now has to pull. Obviously, the idea is to exhaust the whale. Once the animal slows down, they'll come in closer and shoot more and more harpoons into it, attached to other boats. So by increasing the amount of drag on the animal and tiring it out, they'll eventually be able to deliver the death blow. It's an ancient technique used by very few people anywhere in the world. It's been effective for who knows how many years, so they see no reason to change it.
We heard it was a difficult hunt. Is that so?
Yeah. Yes. It was very tough. 2 of the 11 boats tipped. It took us an hour and a half to get the boats back in position. Other harpooners had to jump in to lend a hand. It was a difficult hunt. I'm a harpooner, and it's a dangerous job. So many things can go wrong. It's very risky. I could die at any moment.
Is there more risk with a bigger whale?
It's always risky, and accidents happen all the time. It doesn't matter how big the whale is. It's dangerous. We have to be really focused during a hunt. We harpooners have a rule. If we have worries at home, we do not go to sea. It's a lot safer. You don't want to take a chance.
How many whales did the village caught this year?
Sudah berapa paus yang diambil tahun ini, Pak?
Tahun ini 2013 ya.
Ya.
This year, we've caught 25.
25 ekor.
Teman-teman di desa
25? That's a lot, isn't it?
Ngambilnya, Pak.
No, it's not too many. If we could catch more, we would. We need them. They're our survival. We're not going to empty the sea by catching 25 whales a year. They're a gift from God. There will always be plenty of whales.
We use every part of the whale. Nothing goes to waste. That shows just how much we need them. We have a saying here that goes, we should all have food to eat, not just our relatives, but everyone. When the pieces are cut out, The women roll them in salt and then hang them to dry. That way the whale meat will keep for months.
The whales are our livelihood. We depend on them. A single whale will feed the community for a month.
Half my share goes to my mother-in-law. I also give some to my neighbors and to the widows. We also traded for corn. 1 platter of corn for 3 strips of whale meat. Sometimes we also traded for bananas and manioc.
The treasure will be divided according to a precise ritual. The crew that first harpooned the whale claims the choice pieces, but the whole community benefits from this manna from the sea.
Tomorrow, the chief will come down from the village, and the head will be set aside for him. The oil will be shared among the members of the village, but the head is always reserved for the chief.
The next day, the villagers begin cutting up the sperm whale's head, which contains the precious spermaceti.
So this is the head of the sperm whale with its single blowhole, which is to the right of center. That's typical. So the blow is always at a slight angle. They will cut off the part of the head that contains the spermaceti, a very valuable oil. Sperm whales are part of Odontoceti, or toothed whales. They have only 1 blowhole, unlike baleen whales that have a double blowhole. The blowhole is off-center, and within the structure is where you find the spermaceti oil.
When the whale is alive, its internal temperature is 37 degrees Celsius, so the spermaceti is in liquid form. Originally mistakenly identified as the whale's semen, the name sperm whale is derived from spermaceti whale. But below 30 degrees, the spermaceti solidifies into a spongy wax. The sperm whale controls its internal temperature and can alter the density of the spermaceti organ to act as ballast when diving. The oil can be burned in lamps and was used to light village houses right up to 2006, when electricity reached Lamalera. At the end of the process, everything has been cut, dried, salted, and stored. All that remains of the animal are a few bits of skeleton that the tide will soon wash out to sea. Life goes back to its usual slow pace until the next whale kill. This was the 25th sperm whale killed in just the last 4 months. At a conservative estimate, we're talking about several tons of food per slaughtered whale, in addition to the dolphins, rays, sharks, swordfish, and other fish caught every day. Yet, the total population, including the surrounding area, is no more than 2,000. Every Thursday, the women of Lamalera attend a market in the neighboring village. Here they can pick up things they need that the ocean does not provide. The road linking the villages, not built until the early 2000s, affords a mobility that has begun to open up the world. Goods and commodities of all kinds can now be transported more easily, but it takes money to pay for them. While barter is still common, villagers increasingly want to sell their products for cash.
In the market, we figured that a package of whale meat like this, that contains 2 or 3 pieces, is worth about $1. So whale meat is not worth much compared to other types of fish or even some vegetables that are not very common here, like carrots. But what doesn't get sold, the woman will try to barter for something else.
Good.
She's traded this for a root vegetable, and she'll do the same here. It's really barter. They're trading root vegetables for pieces of whale meat.
Not so long ago, whale meat was the basis of the local economy. But access to modern equipment and the free circulation of goods have altered life on this Indonesian island. Motorboats now set drift nets that catch vast numbers of fish. With modern technology being used to scoop up ever more marine life, some environmental groups have begun to question the legitimacy of traditions, especially where endangered species are concerned.
When I look back and compare the situation now to previous years, I'd say the catch has really gone down since the late 1980s. As far as protecting species is concerned, it's a noble cause. But I firmly believe that the resource will be here for hundreds of years to come.
We've always lived off what the sea gives us, and that includes whales. Some time ago, some people came to talk to us about protecting whales. But no one on Lamalera agrees with them. What we are doing is legal. The International Court of Justice permits our traditional hunting practices. We fishermen work very hard. Sometimes we work almost 24 hours a day. We will never stop hunting the way we do, the way we've always done. Not long ago, the local government tried to make us give up hunting, but we refused because this is traditional hunting and because all of the equipment we use is made by hand. No one can stop us from doing this. It would be an insult to our ancestors.
It may be hard to accept that this can still qualify as traditional fishing, especially compared to the way things were done before outboard motors came on the scene. They chase a killer whale, but the animal is fast. Dolphins. This time the boat was able to catch up to the fleeing animal.
When we go out to sea and harpoon a dolphin, what we see is not a beautiful, intelligent animal. What we see more than anything else is an animal that, once we get it back to the village, will feed our families. We believe it's important to strike a dolphin's snout to shorten its suffering. That technique has been passed down from our ancestors.
During one maneuver, disaster strikes. The motorboat has struck the harpooner, causing a serious head injury.
John, can we go to Ulandoni because the local hospital nearby, like just in front of our boat? Oh yeah, okay.
We quickly get the injured man to the village. On the way back, another unforgettable event brings a difficult day to a close. A crew member spots a familiar shape, and the boat makes straight for this shadow on the surface. The sight of an enormous manta ray sends the hunters into a frenzy. They struggle mightily to capture the animal. Since we arrived, we've been wondering about middlemen, foreign buyers who might be reselling some products of the marine harvest. But no one was prepared to discuss it. The standard response was that what happens here is subsistence hunting and fishing, not commercial. Our rescue of the wounded harpooner may explain his sudden and surprising willingness to talk.
For us, manta rays are a better catch than dolphins. In addition to their meat, there's also their gill rakers. The gill rakers bring in a lot. We get $50 a kilo for the gill rakers. We have a buyer here on the island. He sells them to a middleman who ships them to China. For shark fins, it's different. We have another buyer who ships them overseas. We get a lot of money for them too.
We know that Chinese importers pay a great deal of money for the gill rakers.
Did you know that the manta ray gill rakers you sell for $50 a kilo go for $500 a kilo on the market?
That's a big surprise. $500 sounds like a huge amount. But for us, $50 a kilo is still a tidy sum.
The devastating effect of middlemen is well known. We've witnessed it firsthand in several countries we've visited, where locals sell products to international buyers for resale in Asia. The price for shark fins or gill rakers from rays is skyrocketing, as is demand. In China, too, tradition is trotted out as an excuse when these delicacies from the sea end up in soup. In less than 15 years, Lamalera has undergone a dramatic transformation. A road has been built, electricity has been installed, and gasoline-powered outboard motors have made things easier for fishermen. Progress has opened up markets, and some local products now make their way to China.
So it's been a good night's fishing on Lamalera. Here on the beach this morning we find many different species, swordfish, mahi-mahi, but there are also a lot of fish that are on the endangered species list. This morning we see a number of species of shark, there are dolphins, a lot of rays, and especially hammerhead sharks. Worldwide stocks of hammerhead have dropped by 98% in the last few decades because of overfishing. But here there's an exception because of traditional fishing. It may be time to ask how far we're prepared to go in respecting cultures when we're talking about endangered species. We're also beginning to feel that we're wearing out our welcome here in the village. I think they'll start urging us to ship out pretty soon. They seem to be more and more annoyed by the camera, so this may soon be the end for us on Lamalera.
In the US and in Japan, they use modern industrial fishing methods that really do endanger whales. That's not the case with us. But they want us to stop from hunting? Why don't they make them stop and leave us alone? If people think we're overfishing, they're not being fair. We go to sea to hunt in a traditional manner. We hunt and fish whatever we can find. If people are bothered by the way we do things here, that's their problem, not mine.
Our point of view usually depends on our values and our culture. It's easy to condemn, and for many of us, often our first instinct. But putting an end to the whale hunt will have major social consequences here. On the other hand, can we accept the status quo with no scientific tracking and oversight? Beyond any ideological position, one question remains fundamental and universal. How far are we prepared to go in harvesting species that are threatened with extinction? Since life began 3.5 billion years ago, species have appeared, evolved, and vanished in step with the ebb and flow of environmental conditions. To unveil the beauty and fragility of nature, the oceanographic schooner Sedna IV has set out on a mission, 1,000 days for the planet. Leading the expedition is Jean Lemire.
We set sail for the Galapagos Islands, true icons of the amazing biodiversity of our planet. Here, nature's spectacle has fascinated people for generations. Conservation is fundamental on the Galapagos, and the protection measures implemented here can help establish more balanced relations between humans and the other species with whom we share the globe.
Located more than 1,000 kilometers off the coast of Ecuador, these remote islands are among the most famous in the vast Pacific Ocean. But for centuries, the archipelago was known only to a few sailors who kept its existence secret. Back in the day, the islands were a larder for pirates. The local wildlife made easy pickings. They had no fear because there were no natural predators. Passing sailors introduced a number of animals, and these have multiplied. Goats, rats, and other invasive species still threaten the unique flora and fauna of these remote islands. But a new threat is looming, more insidious than tourism or even the introduction of exotic invasive species: climate change. The island's extraordinary richness is due in large part to the interplay of the great ocean currents that help regulate the climate of our planet. In this region, the Humboldt Current flows north from the Antarctic, skirting the coasts of Chile and Peru. This deep water stream, 7 or 8 degrees colder than the surrounding ocean at these latitudes, comes to the surface bringing nutrients that stimulate the growth of plant and animal plankton on which many species of fish feed. This abundance of food is a boon for many animals, like the Galapagos penguin, the most northerly species of penguin on the planet. The geographic location of the Galapagos Islands isn't an ideal habitat for penguins, but they've been able to adapt to the tropical climate thanks to the cold ocean currents that bathe the archipelago. To escape the heat, Galapagos penguins spend most of their time in the water and only return to land at sundown. But an increasingly frequent climatic anomaly is threatening the survival of these penguins endemic to the Galapagos: El Niño. Normally, the tropical trade winds blow the warm surface waters out to sea, creating a vacuum filled by the upwelling of these cold, nutrient-rich waters from the depths. In El Niño years, the trade winds weaken. The masses of warmer water that accumulate in the western part of the South Pacific travel east, blocking the upwelling of the cold ocean currents all along the coast. The coastal waters heat up even more and cannot support nutrients. The great schools of fish, such as anchovies and sardines, migrate further out to sea, leaving species that depend on them for food to go hungry. Two major El Niño events in 1982 and 1997 caused a famine among the penguins of the Galapagos. In 1982, El Niño wiped out 77% of the population. Only 463 penguins remained on the Galapagos. 15 years later, in 1997, another extreme El Niño struck hard. That year, 66% of the already diminished population starved to death from lack of food within reach of the archipelago. Today, Galapagos penguin numbers have stabilized at around 2,000 individuals. However, the high mortality rate associated with El Niño means that this weather event is a major and ongoing threat to the survival of this vulnerable species. Scientists in Galapagos Islands National Park, who monitor these climate phenomena, have already noted important changes within different ecosystems.
En esta época del año, las iguanas marinas empiezan a hacer su territorio, ¿no?
This is the time of year when marine iguanas start to establish their territory.
Agarrando su territorio. Normalmente.
And these guys are doing that right now.
Donde pueden tener varias hembras, si puedes ver. Y en esta época del año, normalmente.
They lay out the boundary of an area within which they can control a certain number of females.
Desde los últimos 4 o 5 años, personalmente he visto.
Mating season begins around the 24th, 25th, or 26th of December. But for the last 4 or 5 years, they've started mating later. They've always been as regular as clockwork. Last season, mating didn't start until the first few days of January.
También se demoró 1 o 2 semanas más. Entonces como que se fue extendiendo más el tema del tiempo, ¿no?
With mating happening later, the eggs don't start to hatch until 1 or 2 weeks later than usual. So the whole reproductive process is shifted later in the year.
Creo mucho que ver con el tema del cambio climático, con el tema del.
I think climate change is a major factor in the delay in the reproductive cycle. We're definitely feeling the effects of climate change here in the Galapagos. We've been keeping track of ocean temperatures going back 70 years. Now that climate disruptions are a big concern, our records are proving very useful in identifying temperature spikes during El Niño events.
Okay, gracias.
This data is vital over the long term. In 20 or 30 years, we'll be able to determine whether or not climate change has had an impact, something that we simply couldn't do with short-term data. This animal here is a type of sea crab that originated far away from the Galapagos archipelago. They traveled on a warm current during an El Niño event. We found lots of them here in 1997 and 1998. We had never seen them before. Their arrival allows us to deduce that ecosystems are affected by changes to the climate. And this is proof that species change, ecosystems change, but also that the habitat where the animals live also undergoes profound changes.
El Niño is unpredictable. The climatic anomaly appears every 2 to 7 years. But many scientists think that the frequency and severity of El Niño events could increase, even double, given the current climatic changes. This could prove fatal to several species endemic to the Galapagos, including sea lions, who depend on the nutritional bounty of the cold Antarctic current. Scientists have noted much higher mortality rates in El Niño years. During the last extreme event, numbers dropped by half.
We've observed that during El Niño events, the seals and sea lions have to go further out to sea to find food like anchovies or sardines. Nursing mothers have to leave their pups alone on shore for longer periods of time. The babies go without food for long stretches and eventually weaken and die. So it's the younger animals that are most seriously affected by these changes to the ecosystem.
At least 90% of the pups will die on the beaches of the Galapagos during extreme El Niño events. And it can take up to 10 years for the population to recover. If, as a majority of scientists think, climate change does increase the severity of El Niño as well as its frequency, the future for these animals, already listed as endangered, is more uncertain than ever. Climate disruptions have no borders and can have dire consequences spread over time and great distances. At the sub-Antarctic Bird Island in the southern Atlantic Ocean, scientists of the British Antarctic Survey noted major die-offs among young fur seals. And these events repeated over time. Years of research have shown that El Niño also takes a toll on wildlife in the Atlantic Ocean, but 2.5 years after the event begins in the Pacific. The band of warm water created by El Niño spreads down the coast of South America, rounds Cape Horn, and flows into the Atlantic, dramatically reducing marine productivity, forcing the fur seals of Bird Island to travel much further in search of food. It took 2.5 years for the warm waters to reach this island in the South Atlantic. But the result is the same. The seal pups starve. The beaches of Bird Island become cemeteries in turn, a testament to the deadly reach of El Niño. In the Galapagos, despite the most stringent conservation practices in the world, many species are under threat. The culprit? The climate crisis, which knows no borders and sneers at conservation measures. A rise in ocean temperature could also have irreparable consequences for the survival of these unique creatures. They have become true symbols of conservation. Marine iguanas, too, are affected by warming seas. Iguanas eat sea algae, which become indigestible as a result of a buildup of a toxin that grows in warm, humid weather. When there's nothing but poor quality algae to eat, and not even much of that, the iguanas are in grave danger. As well, erosion and floods destroy their nests, and the warmer air affects their ability to control their internal body temperature. In one of the most recent extreme El Niño events, almost 90% of marine iguanas died. Torrential rains that accompany El Niño can affect the giant Galapagos tortoise. Nests get flooded, and landslides trap some giant tortoises in ravines. Estimates are that over 250,000 giant tortoises once lived on different islands before the Galapagos were discovered in the 16th century. Caught and kept alive on sailing ships as a source of fresh meat, their numbers plummeted. The introduction of invasive animals like goats and rats also contributed to the decline of giant tortoises throughout the archipelago. In 1974, there were only 3,000 individuals left. But major conservation and captive breeding programs have allowed some subspecies to recover. Today, there are around 20,000 individual animals all told.
This is a male tortoise from Santa Cruz. We're 25 kilometers from the coast. That's why there are around 5,000 of this subspecies left. It's so far inland that the whalers and hunters never bothered coming to get them. These animals are an integral part of our ecosystem. The plants on the Galapagos have evolved in concert with this link of the chain. If it weren't for these tortoises, the vegetation would be completely different. We know that some of these plants even have to pass through the tortoise's digestive system to germinate. The evolution of the island is so intertwined with the tortoises that it's hard to imagine what the islands would look like if there were no tortoises.
Efforts to conserve the last giant Galapagos tortoises have saved some subspecies from extinction. But it was 1 minute to midnight when the reintroduction team arrived on the islands.
I started working with the tortoises when the park was created. At that time, we knew very little about the tortoises. How well was the population doing? Were they in good shape individually and as a species? Where did they come from? Where were they concentrated? We knew nothing about them.
Tortoises is known around the world because of his special relationship with one famous tortoise, Lonesome George. George was the last living male of the Pinta Island subspecies. A bevy of genetically compatible females were introduced to the old bachelor, but in vain. People around the world were enthralled by this amazing story of survival. Today, Tortoises and his team focus on protecting young tortoises for eventual reintroduction on the different islands of the archipelago.
The tortoises live here for 2 years before being released into the wild. They're still very vulnerable during that first year. The biggest danger is rats. Rats don't attack the eggs, just the baby tortoises. But the pigs eat tortoise eggs. Rats can actually eat a small tortoise like this. We've reintegrated 1,800 tortoises from our incubators on Hispaniola Island. At that time, only 15 adult tortoises were left. We brought them here to mate. We had to do that because they weren't reproducing in the wild. The few who survived were dispersed all over the island. It was almost impossible for males and females to find each other in all that territory. Now we are finding nests of young adult tortoises. There are around 3,000 today. The species has made a good recovery.
Conservation measures, captive breeding programs, and the giant tortoise's amazing longevity, up to 200 years, have enabled some subspecies to escape extinction. But other subspecies remain in danger, especially with the potential degradation of their habitats caused by climate change. We left the Galapagos feeling uncertain about the future of this paradise of biodiversity. Climate change will affect not only animals and plants over the next century. Scientists foresee that all the islands in the Pacific will face temperature increases on land and sea. Beyond the disasters feared by the predicted rise in sea level, ocean warming could affect our ability to feed the planet. To understand one of the little-known consequences of warming, we set sail for French Polynesia. Spread over 165 million square kilometers, 1/3 of the surface of the Earth, the Pacific Ocean supplies almost 60% of all the fish eaten on the planet. This extraordinary abundance is due in large part to its coral reefs, which support a wealth of diverse life forms. But over the last 30 years, scientists have noted a dramatic rise in coral die-off and an overall degradation of coral ecosystems. All over the world, coral reefs are threatened by the warming of the oceans, by their increasing acidity, and by the ever-growing pressure of humans on these fragile habitats. On the island of Moorea, scientists are working to understand the evolution of coral reefs.
In a way, it's a shame that coral reefs are coastal. Coral needs light to grow, so they have to be in shallow water, which automatically puts them close to human activity. The biggest threats are overfishing, excess sediment, drag nets, and hard objects that bump or crash into the coral reef. All those things have a negative impact.
Coral reefs form ecosystems that provide shelter and food to millions of life forms, from bacteria to algae, and from fish to the largest marine predators. Reefs are comparable to tropical forests on land because of the amazing variety of species that depend on them. Coral reefs are fundamental to life in the oceans. Degradation of corals will inevitably impact how much fish the oceans can produce. We estimate that more than 85% of fish stocks are overexploited or exploited to the maximum, and the pressure to feed humankind can only increase. Yet, according to the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, 7 of the 10 most important varieties of fish are on the brink of complete disappearance. Globally, 1 fish species in 3 is threatened with extinction.
We've been recording ocean temperatures on Moorea for over 25 years and have noted what may seem like a slight increase of 1/4 degree Celsius. This long-term study indicates a trend, and if we're talking 1/4 degree every 25 years, that's 1 whole degree in a century. We're starting from average temperatures of 28 to 29 degrees, and 1 degree more takes us up to 30 degrees, just about the upper limit of tolerance for a coral reef. That's when bleaching starts to occur, and any additional stress could tip it over the edge. Each stress isn't disastrous in and of itself, but it's the accumulation of stressors that does the damage.
Even a small increase in temperature is highly stressful to corals. Corals react by expelling zooxanthellae, single-cell algae that live symbiotically with the coral. Without these essential algae in their tissues, the coral turn white and will eventually die of starvation. Episodes of massive coral bleaching have been observed 7 times since the middle of the 1980s on the Moorea Reef. Coral reefs are also vulnerable to attack by the crown-of-thorns starfish, or Ocanthaster. This voracious coral-eating predator has caused the percentage of living coral on the north coast of Moorea to plummet by 96%. Another blow fell in 2010. when Cyclone Oli's 7-meter-high waves heavily damaged the physical structure of the outer slopes of the reef, leaving the coral in a critical state. But the coral ecosystems of Moorea seem resilient. Doctoral candidate Caroline Dubé is studying the Moorea Reef.
On the dive, we saw a lunar landscape, indicating that the reef has been badly damaged in a series of disturbances over the last decade. We can't say for sure that the reef is recovering, but some pioneer species are starting to recolonize the substrate. So that's a good sign that things are starting to get back to normal after all the upheaval. And as we continue to observe the reef over the next few years, we should gather more evidence of the reef's chances to make a full recovery from the damage. Today we saw herbivores, carnivores, and large predators like sharks. That shows that the food chain is intact, despite the fact that the coral isn't in good shape. It proves that the ecosystem is stable and that there's a chance that it will recover over the next few years.
While the number and variety of life forms in and around the degraded coral reef has diminished considerably, there is still a wide range of species in the food chain. The arrival of large predators may be a hopeful sign for the future of this recovering ecosystem.
So he's a juvenile? How old?
He's just under a year old. He's about 60 centimeters long. Now we've got him, and we'll try to be quick, get everything done within 1 to 3 minutes. Let's go. First, a picture. That's one. Can you turn him over? What we've been doing for the past 2 years is collecting data on juveniles, subadults, and adults. And by recapturing individual animals, we can see how fast they grow. And he's a bit more, 3.6.
And the young sharks will stay here for 3 or 4 years?
That's right. They live here and eat, get bigger and stronger. Once they become subadults, when they're around a meter long, they'll start to travel more out into the lagoon and even to the other side of the reef. There, he's ready to go.
Research is vital if we want to improve our understanding of the complex universe of reefs.
Good morning.
American scientists from the University of California are studying the recovering corals near Moorea.
Good morning. Good morning. How are you? Welcome on board.
They're taking advantage of Setanophores' presence here to expand their exploration into harder-to-reach areas in order to compare the different rates of coral recovery.
Coral reefs are really in a very dire situation. Large amounts of coral have been lost in the last 50 years, and that loss of coral arguably began 300 years ago when European explorers first got to tropical locations. But those losses have really intensified in the last 50 years, and maybe in the 60s and 70s there are many parts of the world that had half of the seafloor covered by live coral, and now it's barely 1/10 of that. It really is very serious.
Scientists are investigating the way new coral tries to repopulate these places. What varieties are resilient, and what are the chances that someday we'll see a viable ecosystem established despite the predicted climatic stress?
So our main objective is this coral survey, and really the tool is the camera framer. So we're looking at the whole landscape, but we're taking very detailed pictures of just a 1/2 meter by a 1/2 meter. We're repeating that many times, and we'll do that at a series of depths, and from that we can then put together a detailed picture of the community structure of the corals.
These are the coin of the realm for our trade. These are photographs of the seafloor, and we have similar photographs that go back now 9 years for Moorea. And we use these photographs to measure how much of the floor of the reef is covered by live coral and how much has died.
How was it?
Oh, really good. You know, it's a really interesting place. It's, I think it's been not as disturbed, or maybe it's been longer since the disturbance than over on Moorea. So we saw more corals, a little bit older corals, so you can see a lot of coral competition. Down deep, it was kind of a lot of rubble, but also a lot of juvenile corals growing in. So it's a sign that there's recruitment of new corals coming here.
This little colony down here, this is live stony coral. This is a coral that probably, it's either unhealthy or it has died recently. And all this gray stuff around here, this is reef rock colonized by algae. So only about 5% of that table is live coral, and the rest is algae and reef rock. So here is a coral colony that was eaten by crown of thorns probably within 48 hours, and here is another one. And just for the contrast, this is what they should look like when they're healthy, just a beautiful layer of tissue, and that disappears, and we have this whiteness.
Even if the result of that is white, it's very different from the bleaching problem.
Absolutely. It's a common symptom of two very different conditions. One is where the tissue is removed, and you're seeing the white bones sticking up into the water column. The second one is where the corals typically are stressed physiologically, usually because the seawater is very, very warm. It causes them to lose their symbiotic algae that they feed with. Once those algae have gone, the tissue is a very thin, transparent layer for a short period of time. And it's white. It looks just like this. But the difference is, for that short period of time, they remain alive. However, without the algae, they can't feed off sunlight. So they then slowly starve. And if the water stays hot, they starve and they starve. And usually within about 2 weeks, then the tissue will die. And then we're back to this condition where whiteness is a sign of the bare bones in the water column.
If we look at the condition of coral around the world, a good 20% of the world's coral is permanently destroyed. These numbers are approximate. Then we have 50% of coral that is critically endangered, and the remaining 30% is in a relatively natural state and not under any particular negative stress for the moment.
Some scientists believe that over 60% of corals could die by the year 2060. Yet fish are the primary source of protein for over 1 billion humans.
The main problem is overfishing. And that's happening because coral reefs are located in economically disadvantaged areas where countries are poor and overpopulated. There's a population explosion in Southeast Asia, throughout the Pacific, as well as in Africa, which is increasing the already tremendous need for protein. And there's a big food warehouse on the doorstep, the lagoon. So people keep on harvesting the way they did in the old days. But whereas there used to be 2,000 fishermen, now there are 20,000. So sooner or later, the system will not be able to produce enough to meet demand. With regard to current climate changes, we know that some corals will be unable to adapt to a rise in temperature or acidity. But there are a great many varieties of coral, and some that are not dominant today could well become dominant in the future. The king will be deposed, and other species of coral will become the main builders of the ecosystem. What we don't know is what that ecosystem will be like. To say there will no longer be any coral ecosystem is going too far, in my opinion. Coral reefs have existed since the dawn of time, so it's a bit much to suggest that they'll disappear. But that they will change, that the balance of the reef system will be modified, of that much I'm sure.
Predictions on climate change include an increase in ocean temperatures. So it's crucial to understand how coral reefs will react in these new circumstances. What types of coral will best survive climate change? And how will higher levels of acidity of the oceans affect the planet's coral? Trying to paint a picture of the future is a major challenge for scientists.
Yes, this is where we've been working long hours for 6 weeks now. My graduate students and I investigating ocean acidification and climate change on corals and algae.
So what do we have here?
We have a set of tanks. They hold about 150 liters, and some of these tanks are basically showing us what the future might look like. We're trying to create a world that will happen in about 100 years in these tanks with high carbon dioxide levels. And then we're trying to grow corals in those conditions for 6 weeks, 4 weeks to 6 weeks to see how they respond to those conditions. We've been working on that now for about 2 years, and we have a pretty good idea how much the growth rates will be reduced.
The outlook isn't promising. In very conservative simulations of the kind of warmer, more acidic ocean conditions predicted for the future, there's a marked decrease in coral growth and productivity. For fish and other organisms that depend on corals, it's not good news. Climate change, more frequent extreme climatic events like El Niño, pollution, the feared increase in natural disasters, and the degradation of coral reefs around the world are interconnected factors that threaten global food supplies.
Did you catch that today? Yes.
Will communities that depend on fish for survival be able to adapt to the expected drop in the productivity of our oceans? Urgent change is essential if we hope to reduce the pressure on our marine resources. Estimates are that more than 85% of fish stocks are currently being overfished or exploited to the limit. In other words, we're now harvesting more fish than the ocean can provide. If the trend continues, commercial fish stocks are likely to collapse by 2050.
The increase in the human population living by the sea is worrisome. As things stand today, coral reefs simply cannot produce enough to meet the protein requirements of an ever-growing number of people, so overfishing is inevitable. At some point, we're going to have to introduce measures to help the natural systems along if we want them to produce enough. We'll have to supplement them with fish farming, impose certain regulations, and introduce stringent management methods. But even if, as an example, we can get people to stop harvesting the top fish in the food chain and switch to species that are lower down, in the long run, we'll still be removing fish and weakening the system no matter what. So in my opinion, we need to find other types of management for better conservation.
On our round-the-world expedition, we've collected clear evidence of major changes in all marine ecosystems on the planet. Climate change risks reducing the ocean's productivity, but we will put more and more pressure on our oceans to feed ourselves. There will be fewer fish for the growing numbers of people who depend on them. In the long run, it's a losing proposition for the fish or for us, humans.
Back when pirates stopped at the Galapagos to catch giant tortoises, the idea of depleting resources never crossed anyone's mind. Why would it? At the time, there were only a few 100 million people on the planet. But in 35 years, we'll be up to 9.7 billion, and probably 11 billion by the end of the century. The pressure on global resources will continue to grow, crippling the planet's ecosystems and endangering all those who live in them. There's one species we won't have to worry about anymore. The Pinta Island tortoise is extinct. Lonesome George, the last living male of his subspecies, has died, wiping out millions of years of evolution in one stroke. More species are going extinct than ever before, as a direct result of our unsustainable exploitation of the planet's resources. But all that could change. The fate of the planet rests in the hands of one species only, ours.